Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of our podcast. This newsletter is political, the podcast component to it. If you are watching the video, you can see a big grin on my face because I found a new feature in Zoom where you can change your background to make it an immersive kind of background. So if you see the video or if you're just listening, we are in a backyard, cartoonish kind of looking backyard with a fireplace in the background and fall leaves because it's the first day of October and there is a little pumpkin. There's actually three pumpkins. And me and my dad have little coffee cups. So
We do. I didn't see
we
the
do.
coffee cups.
And so I love this because I love fall. First of all, my birthday usually falls sometimes during some years on the autumn equinox. So I am literally a fall baby. I am a Libra, just in case people are wondering. But yeah, and I just discovered this little feature like literally 30 seconds before I pressed record, and my dad was very confused and he's kind of nervous about it. That's okay. So anyways, after that little fun fact, we're going to talk about today's topic, which is healthcare coverage in Texas, but specifically an incident that provoked this topic for today's conversation is Blue Cross Blue Shield. Let me read the KERA News headline. 450,000 North Texans could lose in-network coverage as Blue Cross contract negotiations continue. So this is first, I want to talk about a little bit more about what's going on. But basically, Blue Cross Blue Shield says UT Southwestern Medical Center and Texas Health Resources are pushing to raise prices, which could leave 450,000 North Texans either without healthcare or having to cover a huge amount of their medical costs. So, Dad, do you have anything else that you might want to add to that, like about the background and depth
specifically, most people, have health care insurance through their employer. And this is where a lot of the Blue Cross Blue Shield people are coming from. And what they mean is you can still use Blue Cross Blue Shield at UT Southwestern if this deal doesn't go through. However, you'll be treated as what they call out of network. And that's where the cost increase comes through that Vicky's talking about. And that out of network, and like I said, if you through your employer, who you can use for your doctor. They usually give you some booklet or some, depending on what kind, if you have a PPO and HMO type of coverage, you do have, some type of network coverage, which gives you a reduced rate because they have contracted the insurance company with the provider. Now, if this contract doesn't get renewed, because now UT Southwestern is asking for like $900 million more in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get if this is multi-year, if this is over a period of time.
I think it is multi-year.
Okay. It's quite a bit. And so
32 months.
Well, that's barely not even 3 years. So they're going to be contracted again in less than 3 years. And we usually try to keep opinions out of this podcast. I have a feeling some opinions are going to bleed through before the end of this one. If I'm not careful, because this is a pretty big deal. Everybody knows we're already dealing with a lot of inflation. If UT Southwestern charges Blue Cross Blue Shield $900 million more over 32 months, which is pretty significant, that's a short time span, that means your premiums, your insurance premiums are going to go up. Blue Cross Blue Shield, I haven't seen it specifically said. They're not going to come out and say, hey, guess what? We're going to raise your insurance premiums. Large corporations don't like telling people that, even though they do it, whether, in costs and things of that nature, costs do get passed on to the consumer. And so this is going to hit a lot of people. They said over 400,000 people are affected by this contract.
Mm-hmm.
In North Texas. This is just North Texas. So this means Dallas, Fort Worth, Denton, Plano, or, Denton County, Collin County, Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth, Dallas County, and a few of the other surrounding areas. So this is a pretty significant amount of people. And this has effect, across the board. do employers decide that they don't want to deal with this anymore and decide to switch insurance, providers? It costs to employers get pretty high when they do this too, because in many cases, your employer will pick up part of your costs. You get some deducted from your paycheck, but your employer is also picking up a big chunk of this cost too. So these costs that get raised, if Blue Cross Blue Shield raises these costs, it's going to affect your employer's decision whether or not to continue to stay with them. So there could be, quite a bit of ripple effect from this decision.
Right. And so Dr. Mark Chasse, I hope I'm saying his name correctly. If I butchered it, I'm sorry. But the chief medical director for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas says that all this could mean higher out-of-pocket costs and new charges for things that aren't covered under a patient's policy. And I believe UT Southwestern and what's the other one? Texas Health. They haven't really commented on stories when reporters are pushing for questions or comments or anything like that, which I find kind of interesting because I would assume that they would use basically what every big company used during this time, which is inflation, and these costs are necessary, and it just goes with what's going on with the pandemic and what's going on with our economic system right now. And the fact that they haven't immediately commented, I mean, it could be a PR thing, they don't want to immediately comment until some parts of the negotiations are continued. But then again, it also could mean something along the lines of, I don't, because it kind of seems like as if they don't, like there's a part of me that reads this.
Did you almost say they don't care?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's what I was going to say. Like, there's a part of me that's like, they don't care because they can get away with doing something like this. Like, it doesn't, like, they have to have, they're going to have medical patients no matter what they do. And this issue isn't necessarily like going to harm them as much as if it was like a different kind of company. You know what I mean? This is a medical healthcare system, and there's really not much that people can necessarily do. I mean, because these contract negotiations are between the people who are in charge, like the directors of both of these organizations. So it's not like something that people have power over necessarily.
Yeah. For example, as a consumer, if you're on your own, you can decide to choose between X store and Y store. And so if X store raises the price of this blouse 10% or 15% and Y store doesn't, same blouse, you go to Y store and buy it. Because of the way these contracts are set up and the way healthcare is set up in America, yes, the consumer doesn't have any control. It seems like to your point, where you don't get to choose, what hospital you go to, what insurance provider you use. I mean, technically you could. It'd be cost prohibitive because if you go out and buy insurance on your own as an individual and bypass your employer's insurance where they're already paying part of your premiums, or offering some kind of, discount through this because they're a group rate. The options you have are detrimental to yourself and trying to be able to shop around for this. You don't get to do the comparison shopping straight up. So there's that. And another interesting facet of this is you have two large for-profit organizations talking about costs to each other, but not to the consumer. Again, to your point, that's the side thing that's really where my opinions may start bleeding in, that you have to be careful about that. These companies both make money and their goal is to make money. So their costs are not just to your inflation point, trying to cover inflation. They're out to make a profit and they're looking at business models to make this. And so Blue Cross doesn't want this extra cost attributed to them because they are going to raise your rates to get there. So they'd rather UT Southwestern not put them under the gun, so to speak, because they're the ones that have to go out and push it to the consumer, the insurance company, in these kind of deals. So to the consumer, UT Southwestern's raise, it is all over the news here in North Texas. So it does help Blue Cross Blue Shield a little bit by getting this story out that these costs are coming not from them, but from somebody else. But in America, health insurance and healthcare costs, is a pretty huge chunk of your budget. And it's not so
Mhm.
in a lot of other countries. So when you see these two, 4 large profit companies start squabbling over, almost $1 billion over, 2 and 2/3 year, 2 and 3/4 year period, it's hard for the average consumer to understand how this impacts them until next year when you get your little benefits package and you see in your benefits package they've raised your rates X dollars.
Mhm.
And this story is long gone by the time most people,
Yeah.
well, it's fall. Most people's benefits start in January. Whether or not they are able to get these rate increases out to the employers within the next month or so, if they have to wait till next year to do it, it's hard to say. All these contracts are, all over the board time wise. So, but at some point in the future, if this goes through, people who have Blue Cross Blue Shield, who are part of this UT Southwestern network, are going to feel the pinch of this. And, like you were mentioning earlier, we've already felt a lot of inflation, and this just adds to it. It balloons on the consumer and just becomes, I don't want to say exponential, but it probably seems
No,
like
it
it
does. No,
sometimes,
yeah, because it's like one
because,
expense after the other, and then you're in this debt kind of cycle where you're catching up and trying to catch up, trying to catch up. And then something else happens, and that puts on more debt, and then you have like the not only you have to pay money, but there are negative consequences to having too much debt. Like it affects your future plans for buying houses, for buying cars, for a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm not sure
and
exactly how debt works because I
well,
don't
this isn't debt. This is a bill.
a bill.
Debt is you go out and borrow money. You say, I'm going to go out and get a credit
Right,
card and
no,
I
but
got
I'm
a
saying
thousand
that like
dollar
let's say
limit.
like you do have like this medical bill, then you need to go
Oh,
out and
that part
borrow
of it
money. Yeah.
to pay it off. Yeah.
I know that much
Sorry,
about
I didn't
that.
catch that.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Okay. No, but it would be that way. You get where you are, and a lot of people have probably run across this, that they've had some kind of surgery, anywhere from, or medical procedure, colonoscopy or endoscopy or something like that.
Endoscopy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. We're flunking medical terms
That's
here.
okay. I didn't go to medical school, so
Neither did I, but we still should at least be able to pronounce this stuff. But you make some arrangement, and then you have like a 6 month where you make 6 months worth of payments to
yeah.
either the doctor or the provider, which UT Southwestern would be a provider for medical tests or day surgery, or even surgery where you have to stay in the hospital. Of course, then
Mhm.
you end up making payment arrangements with the hospital. So yes, to your point, this just adds to how much money you are spending before you even get to go out and have a budget. Your budget just
Mhm.
locks money out of your budget. And, we need to take care of ourselves. I mean, you don't want to walk around with all these horrendous medical problems because you're not going to be walking around much longer.
Is there
Um,
an option to like opt out of your health insurance?
that goes back to this Obamacare that you have to kind of tiptoe through here real quick for this discussion, because there is, a healthcare through the network, but I don't know what the parameters are of that. If you refuse your employer, can you go to the network and shop
Mhm.
on the network, or do you have to go out and shop as an individual consumer, which means you go to Blue Cross Blue Shield and say, I want to buy an insurance policy. Well, you're buying it for yourself. Again, the individual rates are going to be much higher than group rates.
Mhm.
So, whether or not you can go through with the marketplace because you've opted out of your employer, I don't know, to be honest, but that would be, one of the choices. Others is, go into all the different, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, to name a couple, and say, how much would you charge me per month? And you're probably talking much, much more than you pay, the deduction from your paycheck if you're going through your employer.
Mhm.
Small businesses have these problems. They only have 5 or 10 employees, or maybe even 50 employees. It's harder for them to get a good rate for their insurance. So they usually team up with other employers and try to create groups. I know that was a few years ago, quite a few years ago. There was some startup companies trying to do that, create organizations for small businesses to join
Mhm.
to help reduce the employer cost of insurance for
Mhm.
their employees. I don't know how far along that industry has gotten, but I had run across that in a variety of circumstances, people trying to do that, but that was years ago. So I'm hoping to develop just for the benefit of some of these smaller employees.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For I know, so we have a family member or a family member who has their family who doesn't have health insurance. And they were at one of our little parties, our family get together parties. Whose birthday was? I think it was Charles's birthday. I don't know. Someone's birthday. And they were talking about how great it was that they didn't have like
Well, they joined a network of non of yeah, we probably need a little bit more explanation. They have insurance, but their deductible is sky high.
oh, is it?
Yeah, and there's some other things they do. Yeah, I wish we had talked to them
Talked
if
a
you
little bit
wanted to
more
get
about
into
that. Yeah.
yeah, comparatively.
Because they're
But
like, when I go to the hospital, I only have to pay so much money. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, they listen to this podcast, so I didn't mean that in like a what is it? In like a negative sort of way, because they know that my life is all over the place. So this is in no way in judgment. It's just that I'm kind of like, how does that work? Because number one, I want to know how it works, and number two, I just don't understand. I don't understand insurance in general. When I was working at a corporate job and they like had me renew my benefits or not renew, like opt in and benefits and all this stuff. I was like, I don't know anything about this. Like, I think I called y'all and you were like, do this, do that. And I was like, can I? Like, I don't know. Like, I was on the computer. Like, I don't know what I should choose, what I shouldn't choose.
it's
I was,
hard. It's hard
yeah.
for the average consumer because, again, you're going through your employer's plan. Many cases they only have one or two choices for you to choose from. An HMO network, you pay so much deductible. Usually, your opt outs are you're on another family member's. Like, I could put you and my spouse on mine, and same thing. You know, your mother could put us on hers, and then we would opt out with our corporations. But you have to prove you have this insurance.
Oh, you do?
So
Why?
because again, that goes back to this Obamacare and making sure everybody's insured. And we'll stay away from that topic. It's another hotbed topic that it's still around. I mean, it's been watered down a little bit over the
I was
years.
gonna say I don't see any benefit from Obamacare that I've from
Well,
everything that it was first touted to be. You know what I mean?
and I've always said it was never healthcare reform. It was insurance care, something or other. It
Something,
wouldn't
yeah.
even. There was a lot of problems with
It
it,
in no way
and people.
changed the healthcare industry
No,
and
we're
the
still being
magnitude
charged
of
the
what
same
it
amount of
was
money.
like of what
Yeah,
it was proposed to be. It's like this isn't revolutionary. This is we're
it
still
was.
having for profit, what's the word? For profit
Yeah,
plant
for-profit corporations
corporations.
making quite a bit of money
Yeah.
because you need to have you know something done to fix your health.
Yeah, and the original term or the original name of it is Affordable Health Care Act. Something I think that's what it is,
Yeah,
ACA or something like that. And I was
and
reading
it
through it one day because I was bored and this is what I do. And I was like, this and no, or I was reading the changes made to it and like
yeah,
kind of like an analysis of like why it's not entirely a reform of healthcare in the American system.
it's not. It's more. It was. It's not even insurance reform. It was just a program that ended up trying to make sure everybody had health care insurance. And it barely did that at best and had nothing to do with reforming the actual cost of healthcare. In fact, more recently, the attempts to get, the Medicaid, the drugs for Medicare
Oh yeah.
reduced, that's the closest thing to healthcare reform we've had in this country. And
But even then with the drug costs, there are different there's like Good RX and then Mark Cuban's thing where they're having like a competing I don't even know what it is, like just a competitor to pharmaceutical companies, not pharmaceutical companies. It's not the pharmaceutical companies, but whoever sells
the
the
drugs.
drugs um to make it more affordable, but it's still a competitive for profit thing. You know what I
And,
mean?
and to tell you how successful pharmaceutical companies have been over the years in protecting their interests, the fact that you talked about a couple discount coupon groups, that these have just come up recently that's lowered it, and pharmaceutical companies don't seem to be fighting this. So they're still making good money.
Yeah, that's true. You're
You
right.
know, and it goes to the pharmacies. I remember there's a layer. Anytime you get a product as a consumer, you have manufacturing costs, which is actual the pharmaceutical companies. Then you have costs to get it to a place where you can buy it, which would be a pharmacy with transportation costs and shipping freight and all that. And then you have what the pharmacy charges you at the consumer level, or which would be retail. So even in our healthcare system, you know, we're layering costs on top of costs. You know, it would be great if we could do a little bit more. I think it would be beneficial. Of course, it takes a lot of people out of it. And people complain because they'd lose their job, but, you know, more direct distribution of medicine to consumers, or maybe even getting consumers from medicine from the doctor's office or having a pharmacy or something. I don't know. We're kind of getting out of going in left field here.
Well,
but,
to go back on topic, the contract that's supposed to be in place, like the deadline for a new contract is October 4th, which is what's today? Tuesday. That's Tuesday, right?
It's Tuesday. Yeah, they're saying up until Monday, you can still have in-network care. You can apply for an extension if you have some kind of ongoing thing that you're being treated for. That's part of this. It's being continued. In other words, you know, there's going to be a series of tests after October 3rd, a series of procedures you have to do after October 3rd. You can apply for some kind of extension of your coverage, but that doesn't guarantee it. I guess it says apply. It doesn't say that you're going to get it, that you could keep this in network. And the concept is in network versus out network. And that out network is usually where your costs balloon or skyrocket.
And so then also, this is according to the Dallas Morning News, but so the charge is over 3 times Medicare rates, and this is according to, so this is the headline from the Dallas Morning News. I can't read the article because it has a paywall, and the only subscription service I subscribe to is the Financial Times. Like, I don't subscribe to the New York Times. I don't subscribe to Dallas Morning News. I don't subscribe to any of these things. Number one, because I can find the information via
other
like
sources,
nonprofit news organizations that do the same reporting, Associated Press, KERA. Usually the broadcast TV stations will have the same story. So I don't subscribe to those things. I do subscribe to Financial Times because now I write for an international trade law firm. So I have to know what's going on there, because that kind of information I do have to invest in. But this is according to a Dallas Morning News article, and it says Texas health hospitals charge over 3 times Medicare rates and want a big increase. Dallas-Fort Worth's market share leader, threatening to end Blue Cross contract on October 4th, is also the state's pricing leader. So, I mean, this isn't like anything that's new. This UT Southwestern and Texas Health Resources, I think that's what it's called, this is a practice for them. They're a corporation that continues to practice something like this. This is according to a D Magazine article from 13 hours ago, that they're still not close to finding a resolution to their contract dispute, according to a Blue Cross Blue Shield Texas executive, which might be the director. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that article. They're nowhere close, and that sounds scary. If you're a Blue Cross Blue Shield member and you've been to UT Southwestern, that probably means that's your network, and you need to make sure you have a pretty good backup plan, and you're not giving a lot. I mean, I think these articles started popping up a couple of weeks ago in regards to this was starting to happen. So you haven't had a lot of time to scramble, and now, you know, with the deadline staring you in the face, you know, Monday being your last day to get services, if you haven't planned ahead, you could be. Now it would be beneficial for them to come to some kind of compromise. Who ends up paying for the compromise is the consumer. So, and this goes back to, you know, the whole point of Obamacare was supposed to make healthcare more affordable. Well, we talked about that, different story, but healthcare in this country is expensive, extremely expensive, and real hardcore reform. And I don't want to take away, people will get mad that we don't want socialist medicine and all that kind of stuff. Well, okay, we don't want socialist medicine, but we don't need for-profit companies fighting each other for how much money they're going to each make at, at different levels and different companies for the same service. All this revolves around you being able to go to the doctor and simple stuff. Go get a flu shot right now. It's flu season. To actually having the flu and needing to see a doctor, to, more serious concerns, getting your annual physical that, you're supposed to get. These kind of things that, are supposed to help us because it catches, potential problems early and would reduce the cost. Now people have to decide if they can afford to even do that.
Yeah.
Which would then exasperate the cost going forward, because if you've got a health problem, but you have to wait 2 years to address it because you couldn't go to a doctor for a physical for 2 years, and now that cost is tripled, and then dealing with the healthcare issue now triples. I mean, this is a major play on people's lives, and something has to be done. And again, this is where my opinion is bleeding in. I don't see a problem with corporations, being out there existing as for-profit companies. But when we're talking about things like healthcare or electricity or, other basic needs, there's got to be some concept that they can't answer to Wall Street. They need to answer to the consumer more than Wall Street, and how their profits are aligned. Because, most of these companies are owned by large, like hedge funds and large stockholders. A lot of people say, we all should invest in the stock market so we can take advantage of, growing our wealth. Very few people can put money in a savings account, much less in a mutual fund, growth program. At this point, few in their 401ks. That's where most people's wealth is developing, is, in a 401k. For the few people who can put it in, less and less people are able to, because they don't make enough money to. Large chunks of the service industry can't. So when you get into basic necessities and what that is affecting the consumer, or how that is affecting the consumer, that needs to be addressed. I mean, again, I have no problem, because it employs people, gives people jobs, and gives people opportunity to have these for-profit companies. But certain companies, they need to answer at a kind of different scale. And they may say, well, that's social. No, it's not. It's just responsible consumerism.
I'm gonna, because we only have a few minutes left and you're going on a diatribe.
Yeah, I know.
I'm kind of like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let me get us back on track, which is what I'm good at doing. I'm kidding. I also go on diatribes. So while you were talking, I was looking up like Blue Cross Blue Shield Texas, because one question that I asked is like, do they inform the employer or the people who the employees? Like, do they inform? Yeah. Do they inform the employers, who then inform the employees about what's happening? I went on their website, Blue Cross bcbstx.com, and they have like how like websites will have pop-ups that will say something along the lines of like, this is the latest information, to like about what's going on within their system or whatever. So they have like 2 pop-ups that say billing email modernization for fully insured and bars billing, and then assistance available for members impacted by severe weather. But there's no like big like those like pop-ups that say contract negotiations still happening. Like, you might not have healthcare on October 4th, or
well, you'll have healthcare again. It's the cost
next year. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And then another question well, that wasn't really a question, that's just like a point that they're not even making it.
They're not pushing it out to their consumers.
No, which I think is interesting. And then number 2, I was trying to see what employers are with Blue Cross Blue Shield, see who this would exactly affect, like what companies and all that stuff, but I can't find that. I wonder if that's like a privacy thing. I don't think it is, but for some reason I can't find like who is partnered with Blue Cross Blue Shield, like the employers who are with them.
They're a big company, so they're going to have a lot of employers across North Texas. North Texas. And Blue Cross Blue Shield's a little bit different because there's Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. It used to be broken up a little bit more.
Yeah, there's like one in North Carolina. There's a whole bunch.
And I don't know if they're affiliated, but I don't know how they're affiliated in regards to, do they all have one large corporate office somewhere nationally, or do they all affiliated offices that have some kind of loose cohesiveness,
Mhm.
for lack of a better word.
Well, this was a great conversation, Dad. Thank you for joining me in my new backyard with our little fireplace
Our
crinkling in the
fireplace
background and
and
our
our
little
Zoom
coffee
conference.
cups. Wait, here's a fun question. I actually know the answer to this question. Okay, actually, let's play a quick game. I know your coffee order. Do you know my coffee order? Your coffee order, if we go to Starbucks, is a white chocolate mocha, grande white chocolate mocha, venti, if you could, white chocolate mocha with the whipped cream, no changes to it. You drink dairy because you're fully able to consume dairy. I'm not. Do you know what my coffee order is?
A latte with oat milk or oat
Oh,
something.
wow. I'm surprised because that changed recently. I always used to get a soy milk latte. And then
Yeah, but you started, there's oat milk in our refrigerator for one thing, I think.
yes.
And then, but I've heard you say that. And then where do you get a Blue Moon?
Summer moon?
Yeah, Summer Moon.
So
Yeah.
I get the latte and I get a different milk, but I do a quarter moon. And then
Yeah,
I get you
that,
a half moon.
okay. I was going to ask you because you bring home it's pretty good. Let's not
Yeah.
just advertise for one company here.
No, yeah. Yeah. No, Blue Moon was in when I lived in Austin, I went to Blue
Summer
Moon.
Moon.
Summer Moon. Yeah, gosh. Summer Moon. And then when they opened up right down the church that we go to. So
right
then
down the street from church, yeah.
Yeah. So
it was exciting for Vicky to have something that she was really hip to.
yes. And then
come
you
to
had
Dallas.
Turkish coffee
Oh
last
yeah,
week
we went to a
birthday.
different
Yeah.
coffee place, a little low. I don't know if it's local.
It
It
is
was
local.
Peace and something. And
Pax and Beneficia. We had to Google it, remember?
yeah, we did Fox and Beneficio, and I had the actual real, apparent real Turkish coffee, which was completely different from
And then you
drinking
came home and
coffee
made a
here in
whole
America.
another pot and had a different cup of coffee because you were
Yeah,
like, eh.
yeah, it was okay. It definitely has a unique flavor, and they do, for those of you who don't know, and be thoughtful in advance or aware in advance. They ground it and leave the grounds in the coffee. It's fine grain coffee, or whatever you call it. And then the bottom of the cup will have all your coffee grounds. So you get a cup and you only get to drink 80% of it because 20% of it's grounds
It's
at the
grounded
bottom.
coffee. That's the worst thing about coffee. Okay. So thank you everyone for listening. If you made it to this far, now you know our coffee orders, which we are always open to. We are both big coffee drinkers. And I hope everyone, with this weather and with everything going on, I hope everyone enjoys whatever drink of choice that they're doing or they're making. And
hot chocolate,
hot
mulled
chocolate,
cider, mulled cider,
eggnog. Okay.
And that's it. Anyway, happy State Fair.
Happy State Fair.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.